All right, guys, welcome to another podcast of Five Star Hospitality. Today, I'm invited my good friend from the USA, Kenneth. Nice to have you here. Thank you for joining. Kenneth, can you please tell me a little bit about you, your company, what you do? It's all yours.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, JP. My name is Kenneth Scharlatt. I am the founder and executive director for Savage Orchid Hospitality. We are a full service hotel, food, and beverage consultancy here in the United States, um, doing everything from market analysis and research, concept development and design, all the way down to full service marketing, which is really our niche. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get deeper into the podcast.
Nice, man. Nice. Thank you. Well, again, thank you for making time to join us. For today, I would like to discuss some different topics, but I would like to start with technology, something that's been taking over the world, but somehow the F&B departments in many privately owned, but also in big hotel chains, are still a bit left behind for some reason.
Yep.
What's your opinion? Technology and F&B, how does it work together? What's the connection?
We have to be better on the hotel side of being where our guests are. So,
Yeah,
and by that, what I mean is having being on their phones.
yeah,
People in today's society, they live on their phones. I know I personally do. JP, I'm sure you do as well with the business that we're in. So we have to be better at being where our guests are.
yeah,
By that, I mean trying to alleviate people using third party systems like DoorDash or Uber Eats or anything of
uh,
that nature. We're losing that revenue. We're losing those sales because we're not easily accessible to our guests so they can place orders through our F&B systems.
yeah,
So we need to start being better with that. Technology, it's not a nice to have anymore. It's a you got to have this if you want to, you know, be as profitable and drive as much potential revenue as possible.
yeah. I agree, and I think where there is a big well, not even a big change, but I think where people should look at, I think mostly are now focused on in-home dining. But I
Hmm.
think also like in the outlets, in the restaurants, in the bars,
For sure.
if you're a beach bed, technology can do a lot more. What's your opinion? Should it be like at overall F&B or maybe just some specific, yes, some specific concepts?
There's definitely areas for improvement in the overall landscape.
Yeah,
From operations, there's inventory management controls, there's daily tools that you can use for daily checklists and so forth and so on. So the technology for daily operations is 100% there, and available. It just needs to be implemented, and independent restaurants have been using it for the longest of times. I just
yeah,
came back from the National Restaurant Association show in Chicago. Literally last night I flew back here, and it's amazing as you're walking the floor. A couple, years ago, technology wasn't as big and prevalent, and you can see the change in that. I would say 75 to 80% of the booths that were there, with the exception of the equipment booths, were technology based solutions, whether
all
it
right.
be for payroll and HR, whether it be for back end reporting, systems like Restaurant 365 and things of that nature. POSs, God, there had to have been 150, point of sale companies there.
Yeah,
The technology is there. Online digital ordering, all of
yeah,
those systems are there that maybe the POSs don't incorporate themselves, but have allowed third party companies to go and connect to their software to allow for third parties, digital ordering platforms, so forth and so on. So the technology is there. It's definitely stuff that can be used throughout the operation,
Mhm.
especially on the marketing side and the monetization side of areas that are being underserved and underutilized.
Yeah, I agree. I remember when I was working in the Caribbean a few years back, we already were quite advanced, especially in that area with having system for everything. So we had the restaurant management system for all the costing,
Hmm.
inventory. We had our POS system that was able to connect to our restaurant management system to do to get live data. We had a QR code to do the ordering. So I think it is something that, of course, is way needed.
For
Um,
sure.
however, feel that sometimes the challenge was they're using so much different systems. It kind of becomes a full-time job, logging in and logging out of every system
Right.
to work with it. So I think that's something that can be improved somehow. That they have like one system that can do it all. That it talks within itself. Maybe. What do you think?
You, sir, are preaching to the choir there. It's funny. I was talking to somebody at the show actually, and we were having this exact conversation of we need to create or not create, but there needs to be a system developed that allows us as operators because we don't have the time, to be like you said, logging into 27 different resource channels to try to get something done. We need it to be as streamlined and simplified as possible. Um, it was an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Do I see it happening? Unfortunately, not
No.
really, just because there's so many different pieces of tech. How would we be able to incorporate all those under one roof type of thing? Um, but a man can dream. So
Yeah.
so hopefully in my next lifetime, after I'm dead and gone in this world and I come back and I'm still in the restaurant business, I can go back in and say, yeah, this is what we were talking about in my last life.
Well, I think what could be a solution is just to have maybe like an F&B like IT coordinator who just runs the system, get reports, and communicates to the restaurant manager or the GM to get all this data. But I think most decisions are based on data nowadays in the restaurant.
Correct.
I be like something you do with your gut feeling, and you cannot sell an experience. Well, you do have the data now to say, okay, this is what's happening, this is where we're failing, this is where we're missing. So I think it becomes more and more important for an F&B manager or director or whoever manager to have this information real time. So there must be something that we can think about how to make it useful in our day-to-day operations. But you don't want to leave the floor. You want to be where your guests are.
Agreed.
Yeah. So
Agreed. And especially on the hotel side, there's so much that more that can be done. Even I'm sure on the independent restaurant side, it's been a few years since I've been in the independent restaurant world, but I came from that world, and having that kind of background and trying to bring that, incorporate that background into my hotel F&B work, there's definitely, like you said, we can add you can add a salary for another person to help, coordinate all of that data,
yeah,
and bring it to the attention of the decision makers and so forth and so on, and also have that person involved in the decision making process. And they're looking at the data firsthand. I'm sure that, as if they're an experienced person looking at data and have a restaurant background and have an idea, and hopefully they would, or else you wouldn't bring them on board. But incorporating them and bringing them on board and getting some of their ideas, to see how we can utilize that data to our best advantage for sure.
I think so. And I think, and that really would like to get your opinion on this one for like the more upscale restaurants, the fine dining establishments all over the world,
Yep.
the Michelin star restaurants. Do you see them using, like, for example, a QR code on the table instead of sending a waiter? Is there something that, without compromising service and a high level of quality, how can do you think technology like support this niche market in the hospitality industry?
I can't see QR codes really being utilized in a fine dining setting.
Yeah,
Simply for the fact is we really want to uphold those Michelin standards, those Forbes standards. Um, that's what people kind of expect. But the more that as we get, later and later and later, and times are changing more and more. The younger
hmm,
generation is the ones that are now starting to utilize those fine dining establishments.
yeah,
Maybe potentially within the next couple years, we can see a way of implementing, you know, those kind of pieces of technology into the guest experience of a
yeah,
fine dining establishment. I just don't see it yet. We haven't, I don't think, refined it enough to
yeah,
where it meets the required standards of what fine dining classifies as.
uh-huh.
But I can see that happening within the next couple of years for sure.
Yeah. And then so the first step and maybe the easiest step is in-room dining. That can be a game changer for an entire department, in my opinion, if they use technology how they should use it. I'm also thinking, how about if you can order from outside through like your own IRD app? Is there something that you think about like this? Like, okay, I'm going to use it as like a bridge between outside suppliers and hotel guests. Is it something what we want, or do we just want to lift up the own IRD kitchen? What do you think is the way to go?
I think what we need to do is focus on monetizing our areas as much as we can internally. So
Yeah,
how do we do that? Like I said, people live on their phones. So
yeah,
they don't want to be having to track down someone to take their order if they're in an area or something like that. Perfect example, I always go to this example, is a pool deck or even with in-room dining like you were mentioning. QR codes are essential in getting and streamlining the ordering process.
yeah,
The other thing that I think is not being utilized nearly enough is the art of geofencing. So, for those that aren't familiar, geofencing is something that y me as the property manager can pinpoint and target a specific area. So, let's say the pool area, right? So, the second that somebody goes into that pool area, they get a push notification on their phone welcoming them to the pool with a
yeah,
link that brings up, the order starts the ordering process for creating an order. Now, in addition to that, you can also, maybe I don't do it that way through if I'm the guest, maybe I don't use the link that's in the push notification, but maybe I'm just sitting in my lounge chair and I'm
yeah,
just scrolling on my phone on Instagram or wherever it may be, and all of a sudden I see a targeted ad from the pool or a video, advertising 2 for 1 specials or advertising, something along those lines. Or just, hey, welcome to the pool. If
yeah,
you're hungry, something along those lines where it's a clickable link. It brings up a screen to scan the QR code. Well, where's the
yeah,
QR code? The QR code is actually an individualized QR code that is on each chair. And by
yeah,
individualized, each chair has its own specific QR code. Why do we do this? There's a couple reasons. One, it knows what menu to pull up in
yeah,
what area you're in. So that's the first thing. But the other thing is it makes it frictionless. So the guest doesn't have to try to find a room number, a chair number, or a location to have their food delivered. But what it does, it just makes it as seamless as possible for the guests. They don't have to input any information. They don't have to try to find anything to input.
yeah,
It knows exactly where you are. So from there, it goes into your dynamic menu, which changes price based on, demand. If you're running any kind of two for one specials, flash sales, happy hour, so forth and so on.
Mm.
And then, AI upsells based off of what you're putting in your cart. And then the last part of this is very important is frictionless payment.
Yeah.
So being able to allow the guests to charge into their room if they want to. They
Exactly.
can also do Apple Pay or Google Pay, however they want to pay that way, or traditional credit or debit card, however they want to do it. But make it as seamless and as frictionless as possible. I guarantee you, if properties start doing like this in their public spaces and also utilizing this system for their rooms,
Yeah.
they will see a 30+ % increase in their food and beverage revenue just like that.
Yeah. Correct.
Guarantee it.
Yeah. I think where what I would love to see, and I agree with you, like the whole customer journey starts on their phone at home or in the hotel room. You just want to book your seat, like on an airplane. You have the
Yep.
whole beach bed or the pool area. You can choose a bed, reserve it. And they charge you like $10 or something to make that
100%.
reservation. And then it would be fun if you can just sit there, order, and pay at the end. Because now the system where I worked with was a bit more complicated, so you had to pay per order. So every
Okay.
order you have to pay at once. And like you said, if I can charge it to my room, or just keep it on a tab and just pay at the end at
Sure.
one time, I think it would be more friendly for the guest. And I'm sure that the application can maybe like reserve a certain amount as soon as you open a tab. Okay, immediately $100 or €100 is already taken from there.
Yep.
It's like possible.
Pre-authorized. Yeah,
Yeah,
pre-authorized it just like, you would at a if you were sitting at a bar and
yeah,
you just open up a tab to get a couple drinks and just close it out at the end. Exact same way.
yeah. I agree. I think that's where it should go. Well, I do find that it's a lot more visible, like you say, in the pool areas, in the beach clubs. I don't see that much in bars. Why would that be? Why isn't why aren't bars also taking over the technology?
I think because in the bar situation, you still want that connection, that personalized connection. I think you still want to utilize and talk to your bartender. And, I love going up when I go to a new bar, I love going up to the bartender and saying, you know, here's what I like, make me something that, especially if it's a craft cocktail bar or something along those lines. I'm a
Yeah,
whiskey guy. Um, I like a little bit of a sweeter drink or a little bit more of a bitter drink or,
yeah,
describe what I kind of like and just let the bartender go do their thing.
yeah.
Um, I think we want that in a bar setting and even in a restaurant setting as well. We want that connection. We want that personalized service. I don't see that going away at any point. Um,
Yeah,
there's a million, there's robotic bartenders and everything like that popping up. I see those more for like a back of house or
yeah.
a service line kind of production kind of situation. But I think in regards to a guest facing area, I I don't see. I mean, there's definitely technology that can be implemented, but I think in regards to placing orders and things of that nature, I think it's still going to be that direct,
So it would
personalized
be
one-on-one
more like,
service.
yeah, so it would be more like maybe, like you said, revenue management or inventory. Those things will be
Correct.
more and more um, advanced in technology, but like service wise, it's still the bars at least will have more people still working. However, I do
Correct.
think, especially if it's like where you don't need that personalized service, technology is saving you a lot of labor costs. So you implement
For sure.
and you save maybe a few full month salaries. So it's also something to consider to make it a bit more broad, as it will. Um, well, it will not be personalized service anymore, but you'll have a huge benefit on labor cost, in my opinion.
100%. And even going back to the pool example that I used earlier,
Yeah,
in regards to labor, you're now reducing your labor drastically because instead of needing servers and runners to run the food from your production areas, you just now need runners. You don't
yeah,
need anybody typically out on floor. And if there's still, we still get the question, well, what about people that aren't great with technology or anything like that? You still have those runners that are constantly circulating the area that if somebody does want to, place an order, those runners will have the capability of taking that order, and they'll still have the handhold tablets and things like that with them, because they have to signify that the order's been delivered.
yeah.
Um, but they'll have the capability of assisting a guest in that type of situation. So
Yeah. And another thing, how about as we often see in hotels that staffing is a problem. If you want IRD 24/7, well, try to find chefs who want to work 24/7. So how can technology help closing that gap somehow? Is of course you have the famous apps like Takeaway and Uber Eats that guests can order from outside, but a hotel should be able to get in between somehow. Is that something that you heard in Chicago, for example, where you were last week?
I don't see hotels returning to a 24-hour room service situation
Hmm.
just because of that
Yeah,
fact right there. Um, I mean, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, not many people are going to be
exactly.
ordering or looking for any kind of room service. They're going to be either still partying or coming back from the bars or already passed out in bed or whatever it may be. So I don't see a 24-hour room service coming back anytime soon, if ever. But
Yeah,
I do see it definitely during, pretty much all your restaurant operation hours and maybe a little bit extended beyond your restaurant extended hours at the end of the day.
yeah,
Um, especially for those three meal kind of restaurant hours. So basically if your breakfast opens up at 6 o'clock, that's when, maybe an hour before is when your room service opens up
yeah,
for coffee or anything like that before somebody comes downstairs. And then towards the end of the night, if your restaurant and bar closes at 11 o'clock, maybe on weekends you extend your room service hours to 1 or 2 in the morning. But
yeah.
I don't see a 24-hour situation coming back anytime soon.
Now it's not of this era anymore. I know a lot of five-star hotels have it in their brand standards, and it's we need to be available 24/7. But I don't think I agree with you. After midnight, they're gonna order a couple of beers, and that's about it. So I don't think they should focus on this per se.
And I think the for those fine hotels, those luxury hotels, I think that's where a lot of the disconnect in it, is between the current generation and the way people traveled in the past.
Yeah,
So I don't think hotels are adapting quick enough. I mean, and it's great. You want to have that mentality of we need to be there for the guests at every possible waking second. But the problem is those people aren't awake at those waking seconds, essentially. So there's not really a need for it's wasting resources.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think the mentality that hotel F&B has always been considered an amenity
yeah,
has led to that kind of thought process.
yeah,
And that's the thing that we need to start moving. Is it great to be an amenity for guests? 100%, for sure, but we can also start bridging that gap where we're not so much as an amenity, but we're also seen as a profit source and
yeah.
a revenue driver.
Yeah, yeah, and I think especially like you said, the hotels they love to stick to the past. Still, all hotels I go to and I've been, I see like the breakfast order. You know that they hang these things on the doorknob, and so you can fill out your breakfast order. Why don't get an app? You can fill it out. You can put the hour you want to have delivered, and done. There's no need to waste paper on 600 or 800 hotel rooms if you can do
And
it.
how much is that going to save in the revenue from printing all of those things and
Yeah,
everything like that? Yeah, I'm working with a hotel right now where they are for the longest of times they've been printing menus
yeah,
in-house internally, but those menus get ruined. And you have
yeah,
to reprint those menus constantly for their restaurant and for their bar. And this hotel has, multiple different menus. They have an all-day menu. They have a happy hour menu, a brunch menu, a breakfast menu, a late night menu, a bar menu, and you know, plus they have a pool and everything upstairs. So those menus get wet, and I mean, forget
yeah,
about it. So the money that you save, we did the calculations here, and the money that you would save just getting them professionally printed on a quality, and durable piece of paper
yeah, yeah.
as compared to or utilizing an app or something like that. um God, it's night and day. I mean, it takes a couple hours to build out, a couple days to build out the menus and everything like that on a website or an app service for ordering. I mean, and your POS providers can help you do it. You just need to
Yeah.
give them the information. So it's not even any of your resources doing it. It's not any of your labor doing it. It's, hey, you send it over to the POS company that you use, and their programmers will be happy to help you program all of that in for you.
Yeah, and I know I've worked with Iris, which is really easy because it connects what you put in your POS. It will
Hmm.
automatically go to the menu,
Yeah.
so the guest will see them. You know, the updates are live. I think you just have to restart once, and the only challenge will be if you have the app already open and you make a change. But then, okay, chooses a good timing to do so. But
Right.
it, life is quite easier that way.
For
So
sure.
yeah, so I think that's something that everybody should look into. Um, last thing, if you could change anything in any hotel, bar, restaurant, beach club, pool, or make it an absolute must uh, based on technology, what would it be?
It's definitely utilizing QR codes to generate and start orders. It's use of digital technology all around for placing orders. So, like I was saying earlier, it's like a five-step process. Yeah, I think there's a sixth step that can be added onto that as well. Is
Yeah,
doing an automated, personalized follow-up. It's that's system driven, so makes it feel humanized, but it's coming from a platform where 5, 10, 12 minutes after somebody gets their order, hey John, it's so and so from the F&B department. Want to make sure that everything came out with your chicken sandwich okay?
yeah, yeah,
And all of that type of stuff. So just doing that personal touch follow up. But I
yeah,
think definitely across the board, we can definitely, as hoteliers, start incorporating technology. Again, it's not a nice to have, it's a gotta have.
yeah,
You have to start implementing this type of technology in order to start driving revenue.
yeah,
QR codes, use of AI for offering upsells, dynamic menus. I think that's the biggest one right there is dynamic menus where your pricing is changing. And that's the other nice part is if you're not utilizing a printed menu in those areas, it's easier for you to do dynamic pricing because there is quote unquote no set pricing, right? We
yeah,
can go in and say what we want our minimum to be, our minimum price to be, our maximum price to offer, so forth and so on. And those can be changing based off of a whole bunch of different factors, weather,
yeah,
um, you know, um how busy is it a peak time, is it a non-peak time, are we trying to do things to try to draw people into those areas on a slower time period? I think all of those type of things in regards to dynamic menus is a massive, massive part of driving the revenue and
Yeah.
bringing people in and monetizing those specific areas.
Yeah, no, I really like what you said about the dynamic menus and the dynamic pricing. Never thought of it that way, but it makes sense. For example, the beer can be $4 in the morning, and during happy hour it will be $2. But then, as it becomes later, it can also be $5. You know,
Correct.
it should be automatically
Correct.
or automatically changed to maximize the revenue. And also, if you see everybody's ordering a certain product, so it's a fast moving item, yeah, why miss the opportunity? Um, Set timings and change the price. I think that's a really good
Absolutely.
strategy for pricing and generating additional revenue.
Absolutely. And there's systems out there that you don't have to sit there and babysit and look at, second by second what's going on. It'll monitor it
Yeah,
and it'll automatically change it based on the demand.
yeah,
There's so much that can be done. AI upsells, if I'm ordering a burger and I
yeah,
don't have any, sides or anything like that, why am I not getting a prompt for, hey, do you want to order a side of fries or maybe some onion rings or something along those lines, and wash it down with a beer or whatever it may be. There's so much there that can definitely be implemented, and again, at the end of it, with the frictionless payment, allowing the guests to pay however they want to pay, keeping those tabs open, but getting a credit card to make sure that we can cover the cost. This way, if it doesn't, um, if they don't physically check out, at least we can go ahead and the system can automatically close it out. I
yeah,
think the other big thing, and the US just started doing this more and more often, I call it the Ticketmaster effect,
yeah,
because Ticketmaster was known for all of their junk fees. Um, don't put your incorporate any of your fees
yeah,
directly into your menu pricing.
yeah,
Don't don't do it at the end. It actually happened to me the other day, a couple weeks back. I put a post up on my LinkedIn about it, and I had a combination of getting, praised for, bringing this to the attention, or I got a lot of people saying, well, how can they do this, so forth and so on. And the big thing is you you don't want to start the relationship feeling shady, I guess is
yeah,
the best way to say it. When you advertise your burger is $15
yeah,
and I put it in my cart, I add a drink for another $3, so now I'm up to $18, whatever it may be. And then all of a sudden I get to the checkout page and my checkout page went from $18 plus tax to $25 plus tax because of delivery fees,
yeah,
handling fees, this junk fee, that junk fee, whatever it may be.
yeah,
Incorporate those fees into your pricing.
yeah,
Start, it's a perception thing. Are they
yeah,
paying the same amount? 100% they're paying the same amount. That's not the issue at question. It's the perception of things. People feel like if they see something is $15 and then all of a sudden they get to the end of their checkout process and it's $23, where
yeah,
did that extra $8 come from? And why do
yeah,
I feel like I'm being duped and scammed on something here? You
yeah,
don't want anything that can negatively perceive and put a bad thought process into your guest's mind. You want to alleviate all of that.
yeah.
Incorporate those fees directly into your pricing and just skip that process where they can any chance that they can feel they got duped.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Really, I think it's moving forward. And I know it happens more in the States than in Europe, because in Europe it's kind of already all implemented. Also, the
Yeah.
taxes are in your sales price, so it won't be mentioned separately. But I understand it's also the psychology behind it, and like you said, how you feel when doing a purchase is a huge difference.
Yeah, and the U.S. government just actually, I don't know if they made it a law or if they just passed something, but even over here now in the U.S., hotels can't charge resort fees anymore.
Okay.
It's against the law, so they have to roll those resort fees into the actual price of the room.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Have a look in the online Savage Orchid Hospitality or savageorchid.com.
SavageOrchid.com,
.com,
and
right?
they can find me on LinkedIn as well. Kenneth
Right.
Scharlatt on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Good, man. Thanks also, of course, Five Star Hospitality. If you have a nice project, Kenneth and me, we can do it together. We will make sure that we help you with everything that you need for MB at least. Once again, thank you, and we'll speak soon.
JP, thank you again for having me on. I really appreciated our chat.
Thank you. Bye bye.